Cool. We're at 27th of October, 2021. Plan team stage weekly meeting. I guess we can skip Alexis item. So Natalia or Donald, you want to demo front-end progress with work items?
Okay, I will run a demo, but please prepare for the fact that visually it's only the title of the feature. Let me share my screen and let's go to the feature page. Currently, the feature flag is enabled on staging. So as you can see, we have a new route called work items. Currently, this goes under the projects. As soon as we have workspaces, this application can be moved under the workspaces freely because it uses pure router, so not big work on the front end, on backend. We will only need to change the controller, and that's it. And what it does, it handles the work item route completely. So we have a wildcard for this part, which pure router will be handling. Currently, when we have an ID here, it will be taking this as work item details. Currently, work item only has title with a proper styling. We will also add a few routes here, probably for create, it will be work items create, again, handled by the router. So we don't need to take this in the Ruby controller. This should be completely fine. On the front end, it implements the schema that we discussed on the engineering discussion. And this schema includes a work item connection type that implements our work item widget edge, work item widgets, and page info. And currently, again, what we have for the query here, we're fetching the list of, we're fetching the work item by ID, not fetching the list of work items. And every single work item can have an array of widgets. This array will be defined on the backend in the future, depending on the work item type, and will define what widgets we are rendering on the front end. So on the front end side, we have this very basic check for now. That says if we have a widget type title, and if we do, we are rendering this, which is a title widget placeholder. So this is basically it for now. And next iteration, we will try to create a work item, I guess, which will add the work item with a mutation to this list. Again, this will require some review from the backend on the mutation, because we will be adding it to the schema, even though there is no real backend implementation. Yep, something like this. Any questions?
Awesome.
So currently we don't do any backend calls, right? Any GraphQL calls?
No. Currently
Yeah,
we are.
That would be nice to capture that query that you're making. Okay, because I'm not.
We did, and we created also, thanks to Donald, we created a bunch of issues that we call integration. Let us say that this query is only client farm, and we need to replace it with an actual backend implementation. So we're not losing this part of the progress as well.
Yeah, because that's something that we don't have on the backend for sure. Yeah. Returning the list of the widgets, so that will be nice to track. Because like we were stating a few times that a lot of the things we have on the backend, this is one of those that we don't. So it'd be nice to be tracking that. So cool, awesome.
Yeah, so it's using mock data at the minute, I understand. Like, do you envision that like you'll continue to work eventually against the issues API until we've started work on a work items API specifically? Or are we kind of going to work from mock data on the assumption that they'll be very different in the future?
To me, it seems that it's much easier to work on the mocked schema right now because widget implementation is different. We have a hash on issue, so we're fetching assignees and all the properties as a hash, and here we're fetching them as a list. And also, it's super nice to have backend validation on every single step we're taking on this schema. So we are pinging and we will be pinging backend engineers. Everyone is aware about it. And if something creates more questions, we can go for engineering discussion meeting like we have, discuss it and have it. If we go with issue, there will be probably lots of refactoring work in the future for work items. So it's easier just to go with front-end implementation. And also it's easier to create issues. So we implemented something on the front-end, we create a mirror integration issue that backend can handle in the future. So every single change on the front-end is documented in these issues.
Yeah, I'd vote with starting a work items GraphQL endpoint rather than extending the issues. Because like a lot of it will be a copy paste code, but also like we don't have to maintain all this backwards compatibility with what issues already offers and all that like weird stuff, right? Like where you're kind of afraid of changing something to not break it or things like that. So like starting fresh, copying over whatever needs to be copied over, and then eventually deprecating the issues endpoint, I think. I'm leaning towards that. I don't know if there are big cons to that.
Yeah, I agree with Alexandru that it might be safer or easier to start with a new endpoint because of backwards compatibility. But maybe we might, I'm not sure if we have discussed this in a technical issue or technical implementation issue or not, but it might be better to point it out there so everybody is on the same page. Regarding the demo, I had just a minor question. It seems that the title is widgetized, so I was curious if we plan a separate widget for title, because I thought that title itself would be basically mandatory for each type, but it's just a minor detail because I think that at this point it's for demo purposes mainly.
Yeah, it's mostly for demo purposes. I've been reading the discussion, but unfortunately we don't have a defined decision for the title, if it's required or not. Again, the change will be super minor. We will just add a title property to the work item type itself instead of widget and change the front-end logic. So yeah, this is mostly for demo, that how we define the widget and how we show it on the front end.
Cool, thanks.
It's my understanding that the title is required. Kristen, can you comment on that as well?
Yeah, title is the only thing that would be required for the smallest work item, such as a task.
Okay, I will create a little issue and merge request just to change it from widget to the required property, so it's also reflected on the work item type.
Nice, thank you. And it looks great. Thank you for demoing.
Sorry.
Oh.
We had that discussion in an issue somewhere, and it was actually decided the other way around. So let's just, that's fine if we want to switch it to being required for everywhere, but we should document that in the issue where that decision was made the other way.
Okay. Let's pull that out in a decision in the agenda too, up at the top today, just in this agenda.
Even if it's required, like if it's required and if it's a widget, I don't see the downside of keeping it as a widget. Like we just have it always there, kind of thing. I don't see why we'd want to be pulled out of a widget per se. We don't know eventually. Like yeah. Anyway, I'm just saying. Like I don't see big downsides to having it as a widget, but I'm not on the front end, so maybe there are.
I found the issue, and I'm wrong. It wasn't a decision made. It was something I made in my head to just treat it as a widget so we could test out the widget version of it. So if we decide, whichever we decide, let's just get it documented in that issue that I'll add to the agenda.
Thank you, Natalia, for the demo. It's awesome to like see stuff coming together, even though it's mostly just front end. It's still great to see it in a browser. It's awesome.
Thank you, and thanks to everyone who was participating in the engineering discussion as well, because it's not only my effort, it was effort of the team to shape how we see the schema and especially widgets.
actually answered a ton of questions for me as well. Just the demo, like how are we going to handle routes? I was never fully sure about that. Like, you know, are things going to have their own routes, or I should say routes or whatever? And you know, like, is the Vue app going to own all the routes? Like, it looks like so the Vue app will kick in on that work items page, and everything will be done then on the front end, right? And yeah, we are going to have like a work items route, which is cool. And yeah, next up is like the next biggest question I have about work items is what does it look like from the user's perspective to create a work item? Like, will they go in and create like a work item completely greenfield, or will they try to create a requirement and see a customized requirement thing, but it's really a work item, or create an issue and it's customized for issues? You know, it's those kind of questions, or maybe both. Like, is there going to be like different calls to action around the UI that result in a different experience in each case? You know,
We have just a standard core work item creation flow outlined in the designs. But I think that some of the overlap between the different types are still being discussed. Is that correct, Kristen, for me to say that? Like, it's still, and I can share the issue that's happening in the agenda.
Yeah, go ahead. The creation, I mean, Gabe and I are talking through that a bit more around how we're going to lock the different release post items like that we're going to ship as individual teams. And it's getting me closer to doing a modified release where we would have it on the issue layout and then deliver that value to all of issue types with the new front end. So that's still in flux. Like, we're still sort of deciding on the rollout plan, but that would mean that the creation would be a shared experience that would be used by all issue types, essentially. Does that answer the question? Is that what you meant, Holly?
Yeah, it sounds like the question is still whether or not work items are going to be a thing. And correct me if I'm wrong, John, because it's early and I may just have misunderstood, but it sounds like the question is still, is a work item a thing in itself and has its own UI versus creating something as a work item that has a type associated with it and therefore a different UI. I would encourage everybody to take a look at that issue that I posted, the sequencing and rollout of work item MVCs, because it's a really good discussion that I think might answer a handful of questions related to this particular topic.
Yeah, and I'll add that I'm struggling to grok it. I think it's a bit better now, but the way that issue is laid out, I'm also not mentally there yet. We're still in discussion and trying to figure it all out, but it is a good thing to look at and just see kind of how we're trying to get these pieces together. And then the other goal of it would be to make each team more autonomous so that like product planning and project management teams can both feel like they know kind of what they're tracking to and the goals they're trying to hit and how it all comes together.
yeah, that'd be helpful for me currently, to be honest. Like, we're not either team working on, I mean, in product planning, we're finishing off requirements to work items, that piece of work. And then project management, that's all we're doing. And project management aren't focusing on work items on the back end in this coming milestone. So I'm wondering, like, when are we going to start work on the work items API? Like, would that be as early as 14.6 possibly?
Possibly, if it's needed. It's not anywhere in our current plan, but if it does support getting to one of these places where we deliver customer value and we're talking about it in the release post, then we definitely need to make sure that it's in there and it gets its own slot in our roadmap, in our planned I guess it's kind of the order of operations, but like split up by teams.
Cool. Well, sure. Let's see. You know, there's, I guess, no rush, but it would be nice also, like, if if we're going to build this sort of work items API layer over the issues table, but we also need like the widget side, which is completely different, right? It's like we need to redesign that and stuff. It might be good to, you know, like use what Natalia and the front end team are giving us in terms of what they need in mock data, and then we already know as soon as we get that, as soon as they've made decisions, we can start work. It's just a case of like, do we want to try and dovetail it so that we're completing things like in advance of their need?
I think that would be the goal, so that we can like get these things out together and as fast as possible. It's going to require more communication and more async communication on the issues, and potentially more sync, just to maybe align some of those things. But the more we can do to kind of unblock and get that ready for the front end, the better.
Maybe we could put immediate demands like in the work items channel, right? So that like not to make it too noisy, but like if there's a chance to get a jump on something in the next milestone, like put it in the channel, and then you and I and like Jake and Gabe will also be aware of that as well, you know. And I think that's the problem. The thing I'm afraid of is like split brain, where, you know, the project management team don't know what we're working on and vice versa.
Yeah, I think one of the hard parts for me even is just how many channels we have though. So because I miss things that aren't in like a group channel or one single source of truth. But I agree, while we're doing this, especially, we need to have a single point of contact where the whole team can see it. Yeah, we're still in a transition period here where we're kind of all together in this across the whole stage. But at some point, we will sort of peel off and have goals as groups that we're tracking to, and we work with the other team and consult with them and bring them as needed.
Cool. Donald, did you get a chance to talk about features?
I think so. Just in regards to yeah, seeing how a user would create a work item. The next one we're going to take on that Natalia's working on is the creation of feature, which I linked there. So hopefully, you know, once we start working on that, we'll be able to visualize it similarly to how we can now visualize the demo that Natalia did. That's all. All right. Is that good on work items? Want to move on to security? All right, John.
Cool. All right. Yeah, this is just an FYI anyway. Like, we're trying to go through the whole backlog of security issues in Plan and group them or close them or prioritize them. So if you don't know, create and manage are going through, I'm not sure whether it's a headcount reset or what, but there's a bit of a focus on security issues in those two stages. And this is just a chance for us to get ahead of it. We have roughly 50 security issues, but some of them are very old. Some of them are security features, which maybe aren't such a priority to fix. But it would be good to know like which ones are related to each other, could be clustered together and solved in one go, or like have a very similar root cause that could be solved in sequence by one or two people. So if you're so inclined, like, please take a look at the issue. There's instructions in the issue for what to do. It's very, very simple. We just like, it's a chance to go through the whole backlog and kind of figure out what to do or what next steps are for each issue. And yeah, feel free to edit the description if you want. If you see things that are related to each other, don't ask, just go ahead and group them and put them in the description. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I had just a question. When they're checked off, that means someone reviewed it and then there's probably a comment on the issue? Or is there like going to be like a list of ones that we that kind of get pulled out or get some indicator on them that we need to schedule?
Yeah, so when they're ticked, like it just means that we've looked at them and taken action on them. Like in some way, it doesn't mean they're done, or doesn't even mean they're
Yeah.
scheduled. Just means they're like by the end, the first list should be either all ticked off or empty. So they've either been moved and clustered into the one of the lower groups, or they've moved it into like a won't fix as something we won't fix, or
Oh, I see. There's a tool at the bottom. I see won't fix. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I would like to add, if any of the security issues are public, they can be fixed in Canonical, so there is no need to follow the security process. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ping me and ask.
Thank you, Costa. And John, it may be actually good for us to pull out any of them that are public and can be fixed in that normal workflow, just so, because that's a little bit less arduous to get through.
Yeah.
So I'll keep an eye out for that. Thanks for that tip.
yeah. Also, Castell, there's some stuff in there that like there are issues that we would have considered security issues like over a year ago, but that we would no longer really. Like, for example, you can tell how many confidential epics a group has, even if you're not qualified to view all epics, by subtracting the number that you see from the number in the count, right? And we decided a while ago that we don't really care about that, and the only way we could solve the security issue is to change that behavior. So are we okay to go ahead and close issues like that immediately, tag you, and if you want, you can reopen them?
We decided that the impact as a security issue is very small, since it don't get a lot of information by just knowing how many, by just knowing a number without knowing the content. But yeah, I mean, I'll gonna take a look and see if there is anything that can be closed from that list, or if there's anything that can be fixed in Canonical. So I'll add comments where is the case, so that you can make it easier for you guys.
Awesome, thank you.
But yeah, if you have any doubts, feel free to ping me and we'll discuss there.
Thank you for being proactive with that, everyone. I think it's great if we get ahead of it, especially if Crate is already kind of underwater with that.
Yeah, my understanding is the managed backlog of security issues was growing faster than they could solve the issues or close the issues. So this was a chance to get things back under control.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone have any other agenda items, or I'm going to stop recording and we can just go to social time.
I'll just give a quick shout out. Sorry, I didn't type it in here, but we are like painfully close to having 0 open infradev issues in plan, which is awesome. It was a pretty significant backlog that we had a few months ago, and so lots of folks have, dedicated their time to that. So thanks to everyone. I think 2 will be closed out. There's 3 remaining. 2 will be closed out today or within the next day, and then there's 1 more that we should finish this milestone. So that'll be a relief from an EM perspective. So thank you.
Nice on that.